Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Inept General coming to you with some Total War Warhammer news at last. And we have had a trailer drop for a new upcoming DLC. This one is called The Hunter and the Beast, and it will be featuring Markus Wulfhart, the Huntsmarshal of the Empire, a man who has sworn vengeance on all the beasts of this world, and Nakai the Wanderer, the mythical hero of the Lizardmen in the form of a Kroxigor, the largest Kroxigor the Lizardmen have ever seen. So these two will be going head to head in this new DLC, and it's the first time we've had a mix of the old Warhammer 1 races with the Warhammer 2 ones, so that's very interesting in its own right. But today we're just going to have a look at all the information that dropped and what is going to be available with this new DLC. To kick us off, first off, we're going to look at the armies of the Huntsmarshal, Markus Wulfhart. Now, I'm not going to delve too much into Markus's lore in this video. I've already done a video on that, and you can find that popping up in the top right hand corner now, or you'll find a link in the description below. But to suffice it to say that a giant killed his whole family, he's out for revenge against all big animals that kill humans, and that is his mission in life. He likes killing big creatures, and Nakai he would classify as a big creature. So that's his motivation for going into this. Now, Markus Wulfhart's faction will be known as the Huntsmarshal's Expedition, and he has a few unique mechanics to go along with his new campaign. The way it looks like his campaign is going to run is the concept is that Markus has been sent by the Emperor to go and take territories in the relatively newly discovered lands of Lustria. So as Markus goes and captures new cities and territories, his influence with the Emperor will go up, which will allow him to have access to new buildings and have access to new units. So he's progressing up the tree, getting better and better units by taking more and more land. And it looks like also doing certain tasks and missions that the Emperor sets aside for him. Now, this will be mainly in the Vortex campaign of Total War Warhammer 2. I'm not sure if this same campaign mechanic will be likely to carry over to the Mortal Empires campaign. If I was to hazard a guess, I'd say that probably isn't the case. We're more looking at the Vortex campaign mechanics here. So as he builds up this mandate with the Emperor, as he gets more respect, a bar will fill on the campaign screen, and then once that bar is filled all the way, Nakai the Wanderer will challenge him for a final confrontation to try and fight back the humans off of his native lands. So that's how the campaign will pan out for Markus Wulfhart. He's just going to be conquering, trying to please the Emperor, fills up the Emperor's mandate bar, and that is when his finale ensues in the Vortex campaign. Another aspect and kind of the opposite is during this campaign, as you're taking more territories, fighting more Lizardmen armies, your hostility that the Lizardmen have towards you will go up. And when this happens, it looks like, much like the Vortex mechanic, where they send Chaos armies after you, or opposite factions can send armies after you to try and break up a ritual, it looks like that the Lizardmen will have armies spring up and try to attack your cities when you reach a certain level of hostility. So that will probably happen a handful of times over the course of the campaign against the Lizardmen as Markus. There's also a kind of side objective with Markus's campaign, and he will be collecting the 4 hunters. So these are 4 characters who we see here on screen. One is a master engineer of the dwarves, one's a paladin of Bretonia, a witch hunter of the Empire, and a way stalker of the Wood Elves. And it looks like these guys will either be heroes or generals. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you will have to do certain special missions to get them, and they're very buffed up versions, it seems, of their counterparts in the other armies, and will give you unique campaign attributes as well, making that final battle a little bit easier for you there. In terms of the units in the Huntsmarshal's Expedition and what you'll be getting, it looks like they're mainly focusing on the tabletop equivalent of the archers and the war wagons. Now, the way this will play out in the game is that there's a new type of general for the Empire, just known as a huntsman. He'll be the kind of a generic version of Markus Wulfhart himself. You'll also get archers, who are your most simple bow units that you can get. They have a regiment of renown as well in the pack, known as the Deathjacks, and these guys will get Vanguard, Stalk, and Snipe. Always very useful abilities to have on a missile unit, so that's great to have there. And then an upgraded version of the archers is the Huntsmen themselves, which I think are the units we see here in this screenshot towards the bottom behind Markus Wulfhart on the right and the left of him. And unlike the regular archers, they all have Vanguard, Stalk, they have better range than the archers, and they have a bonus versus large, unlike the archers as well. Their regiment of renown will be known as the White Wolves, and the concept behind this regiment of renown is that they will be pretty decent at melee combat, so they can function as a kind of dual role there for you. They'll also have Encourage and Immune to Psychology on top of that. So a pretty handy unit to have. And then we're moving on to the war wagons. The initial, most basic war wagon is with guys in the back firing off rifles and pistols and what have you. Now they're to be used like a missile cavalry mainly, rather than charging in to the middle of combat. But they are going to be a lot slower than other missile cavalry due to the nature of the horses dragging around a massive chariot behind them. But they will have a 360-degree arc of fire. And one imagines they'll probably have some armor piercing because it is gunpowder weapons they'll be using in the wagon itself. So that's a fantastic unit to see. Not made an appearance in the later editions of the tabletop game itself, but the War Wagon is a classic piece of Warhammer, and it's lovely to see it make an appearance in Total War Warhammer 2. There are two other variations of War Wagon. The other one is a mortar War Wagon, and you get the concept. It's a mortar on a War Wagon, a very mobile mortar, but its sort of downside on being able to move around is it will have a lot less ammo than your regular mortar in the Empire armies. And the Regiment of Renowned War Wagon will be known as the Black Lions War Wagon, and this one has a Hell Blaster in the back, and its trade-up is that it has much shorter range than your typical Hell Blaster. But you can move it around, and that thing I can imagine in the right hands being extremely deadly indeed. So those are the units. As far as Markus himself, he will be ranged, armor-piercing, bonus against large, and Vanguard. He'll also have Stalk and a 360-degree firing around him, and he will be immune to psychology. Now, we don't know what the Amber Bow will give him in terms of bonuses when he gets it as a magical item, which is an item he has in the lore. And in the lore, it actually allows his arrows to home in on their enemy targets, and almost always strikes their target straight in the heart. Now, whether their arrows of Markus will have any kind of homing, we'll have to wait and see how he performs on the battlefield, but there's no sign of that as of yet. In terms of some campaign buffs he has, they told us he'd be good against ambush defense and have a large upkeep reduction with hunters and archers. So that's how Markus and the Huntsmarshal's expedition is shaping up. Some great new units. It's great to have the Huntsmen in there. It would have been nice to have seen the White Wolves make an appearance in terms of extra cavalry, but maybe we'll see them down the line when more fighting is happening in the north with the Chaos invasions in Total War Warhammer 3. But we'll have to wait and see for that one. Moving on to the Lizardmen, we have Nakai. And Nakai's faction is known as the Spirit of the Jungle. In terms of the mechanics of the Nakai campaign, this sounds quite interesting. These are going to be a Horde Lizardmen faction. Now, for those of you who played Total Warhammer 2, you'll have a good understanding of exactly what that means. But it means they will not have a established cities. They won't take over cities. They will move around in their hordes and grow structures as they rampage around the map. Now, the idea here is that it's not quite a simple horde faction because you will start the game with a vassal faction under you, and when you take cities, you're allowed to donate those cities to the vassal faction, which will be known as the Defenders of the Great Plan. So you can still take cities, you still will get income from giving cities over to your vassals. It also works a bit differently compared to some of the other hordes in the game in that only Nakai's horde will be able to unlock new units. So it's not like the Chaos faction where each army can unlock different units. Only Nakai can unlock units, and for other factions to get at those unlocked units, they will have to recruit them through the global recruitment pool rather than being able to recruit them from their own structures, which means they'll be a bit more expensive to get, but they will have buildings in the minor hordes, not Nakai's horde himself, to lower the cost of the global recruitment to make it a bit more manageable. So that sounds like a very interesting and different campaign, particularly from the Lizardmen perspective. Now, when you take a region for your vassal, an option will pop up allowing you to build a temple to be dedicated to one of the old ones. Now, depending on which old one you pick, you'll get a different set of bonuses and rewards. Now, you'll also build up a resource known as the Old One's Favor by doing this, which will give you access to the blessed spawnings we've seen in the Lizardmen factions before, and it will give you an opportunity to recruit lords at a much higher level than you otherwise would have by spending this resource of the Old One's Favor. Now, there's another aspect in the campaign of Nakai the Wanderer, and that is that he has the opportunity to kill these 4 hunters that we've seen in the Huntsmarshal's campaign. That actually does suggest that they're more likely to be generals than not. So when he kills them, he will obviously get probably resources from Favors of the Old Ones and get certain rewards for that. But by killing all 4 of them, this is how you get to his finale. You kill all 4 of these special characters, then the Huntsmarshal comes after Nakai, and then their final battle ensues in this DLC in the Vortex campaign. So that's actually all pretty interesting. They're going head-to-head, not historically in the lore enemies. I don't think they've ever actually met in the lore. In fact, Markus tends to really just stick around the Drakwall Forest, killing the huge amounts of devastating or horrible creatures there, rather than venturing around the world. But it's an interesting take on it. The last thing for Nakai and his mechanics is that he has a couple of unique rights that we've seen make an appearance before in Total War Warhammer 2. The first one is the right of allegiance, and that increases the income you get from your vassal, as well as increases your replenishment rate. The second one is the right of rebirth, which increases the growth in your hordes and reduces the cost of construction. And the third one is the right of mastery, which gives you the ability to recruit Croxagors at a higher rank, and it increases their weapon strength and armor on the battlefield. So, a few fun rights there that will very much play towards the strength of Nakai the Wanderer's faction, the Spirit of the Jungle. Moving on from the mechanics, let's have a look at the units available to him. The units we get in this pack will revolve around sort of 3 main areas. They're increasing the variety of Croxagors available to you. They're also really focusing on the Razordons and the Dreadsauruses. So the Dreadsaurus is a fantastic addition, wonderful to see it make an appearance in the game, and I'm really happy that it did. It's a shame not to get the Troglodon, but this kind of makes up for it. The Dreadsaurus is a great thing to have in Total War Warhammer 2, and I can't wait to see how big it is compared to giants and things like that on the battlefield. And in fact, we do get a picture of the Dreadsaurus in the image here. But what we'll have a look at is the Croxagors first of all, and it looks like there'll be 2 new types of Croxagor. One known as the Ancient Croxagor, which will have a bit more armor than your typical Croxagor and will be an anti-infantry bonus as well. And there's the Sacred Croxagors, who have a bit of a higher weapon strength than the Ancients and the Normals and do magical damage. They will have a Regiment of Renowned, known as the Cohort of Huatl, and the thing that sticks out for this Regiment of Renown is they will have Armor Sundering, which negates armor in units they're fighting, and they will have increased physical resistance. So that's a great hardy unit to have in your army there. And then we will also be seeing the introduction of the Razordons. You can kind of spot them in this image towards the top right-hand corner of the Lizardmen army there. Now, I was really hopeful we were going to miss out on these guys after last DLC pack came out and they weren't featured in it, but they will be your armor-piercing missiles for the Lizardmen, and a fantastic niche in the army they will fill as well. I can't wait to see these guys on the battlefield. They'll be fantastic, and I've been very much looking forward to getting my hands on them. Let's wait and see before I jump for joy on sort of how much range they have and things like that. but a great addition and fantastic to see them in the Lizardmen army. They will have a regiment of renown of Razordons, and they will be known as the Amoxon Razordons, and they will have poison as well as missile resistance, so they can maybe stand toe-to-toe with other missile units as well. So that's a great little addition to the Lizardmen army. And last, but by no means least, we have the Dreadsaurus. Now, there'll be two types of Dreadsaurus. There'll be the Feral Dreadsaurus, which will just be the Dreadsaurus by itself, and it will be vulnerable to Rampage, where you lose control of it for a certain amount of time. Now, the upgraded version of that will be the Dreadsaurus Howder, and this is a bit more of a tame Dreadsaurus. He'll have some skinks on his back, with big blowpipes and throwing down javelins as well. So he'll be able to do a lot of damage there, and he is not vulnerable to Rampage. He will never Rampage, this Dreadsaurus, which is a great addition to have and a good little upgrade for those beasts there. They will have a regiment of renown known as the Shredder of Lustria. And the bonuses that this regiment of renown will have is they will have Encourage, which we've seen in the game before, and they will have a passive hex around them that lowers the leaderships of the enemy units they are engaged with. So all in all, it could be a pretty devastating weapon for the Lizardmen. So can't wait to get a look at those guys. As far as Nakai himself, he will be a brawler, not to anyone's surprise. He will also have bonuses to melee defense, and he will reduce the recruitment cost of Croxagores will be his main bonuses. He'll also have a couple of abilities on the battlefield. He'll have a Miasma of Despair around him, which will increase the vigor, speed, and leadership of units around him. Primal Roar, which ups his physical resistance and melee attack. And it will give Rampage to the allies around him, so you have to be a bit careful how you use that if you want to be a bit delicate with what's going on with your troops. And he will have something known as the Golden Tribute, sort of giving a nod to the fact that the Skinks kind of worship Nakai the Wanderer and often bring him golden tributes as a kind of form of worship. And this will give him perfect vigor for him and any allies within range of the ability. So all in all, he was really built to last a long time in melee, really buff up the units around him fighting as well. So can't wait to get my hands on Nakai the Wanderer. Fantastic to see him in the game. Now, that's about it for the DLC itself. We did get some news on some of the free DLC content coming up on the 11th of September, but I think I'm going to cover that in a separate video, as this one's gone on a little bit longer than I anticipated anyway. But I hope you guys enjoyed that information. Let me know in the comments if you're looking forward to this DLC, if it was a surprise or not, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. But as always, a huge thank you for watching, and I hope to catch you all on the next one. Alright guys, bye.